Firstly, something that's probably quite topical at the moment. I know a lot of people have had enough of it, but Brexit, I mean, how much of an effect is that going to have on the UK's need to become self-sufficient in terms of oil and gas sources in this country?
In the pain in the neck for me, I'm in the middle of my audit, and I've got 2 pages to write on how it's going to affect the company. I don't think anybody really knows, but I agree with you that, onshore, especially, oil resources close at hand, it should be good. Any penny helps, maybe. Politically, I can't comment. Hands up, Remain.
I've sort of been looking at various gas storage options for the UK as well. But to this point, we've not really received any indication from the government one way or the other. And we haven't really figured out if we're going to get any support regardless. But we have looked at options like gas storage, putting tank farms in, etc. But at this point, who knows?
That's fair enough, yep. I mean, in terms of actual legislation, are we going to see much in the way of changes on that front as a result of leaving the EU, if it...
No, I think we'd probably be the bottom of the pile, to be honest with you. Nothing ever really changes, regardless of government change. It's still the same old council. You find the oil or gas, make a discovery. You've still got to get it through the councils, the local councils. Some councils are very good, like especially the ones where we're drilling in a couple of weeks up at West Newton. That would be East Riding. They're brilliant. Everything works. You can go 25 miles to the west, North Links Council, and they hold you up. So it's no change, no difference, I don't think. Would it change? Probably not. Been around for years. That's the system. It's going to take something really desperate to change, I believe.
I wish it bloody would change.
Yeah, me too.
No, I mean, there's some things that would be desperately need to change. Things like the water injection legislation, which is also EU directives right now, where previously we could re-inject water from the same formation where we were producing the oil back into that formation to boost our oil production, and that's currently a complete nightmare, not so much for us, but a few other operators are having a real problem with it. So things like that would be lovely if they did change, but I suspect we're going to have to speak to Ken Cronin at UKOOG and see if he can do something.
I mean, is there a disconnect between sort of legislation on a local level compared to sort of what the national government want?
Of course there is, yeah. Still a lot of education to happen. And if you've got somebody who doesn't want to listen, I don't think they ever will.
I mean, does that have much of an effect, sort of that local opposition? I mean, in terms of plan?
Yeah, it's a terrible effect because it takes, we've been sitting on Discovery for 3 years. We could be pulling in 4 million a year. Our costs for Union Jack are less than $1 million to run. So if you take the running cost, operating cost out of 4 million, we're a profit-making company, and that could have happened 2 years ago. But instead, we've still got to go out and raise money to keep going. So, major issue, yeah.
Yeah, it's not. The disconnect. There seem to be certain agendas within various organisations where 90% of the people are, generally quite easy to deal with and want the right thing, and then you've got 1 or 2 voices which seem to be fairly illogical but seem to shout everybody else down. And as you say, some councils are fantastic, and then other councils you've got 1 or 2 people that are just vehemently anti-oil and gas, and that's that. And nothing can be done to change it.
Yeah. I mean, on that basis, how important is it to have conventional oil and gas as well as obviously...
I think fracking is a long way away. We personally, even though we've got big fracking areas underneath what we've already got conventional, we'd never try and... I think it's beyond my time, probably. Not being pessimistic, but that's the way it is. You've only got to see... I'm not going to tell you to go and read it, but if you do read Drill or Drop, you're up against it. Would you say so?
Yeah. Thanks for that Drill or Drop plug there. It's great.
It's still early days. And I don't think it's not my season that's left anyway.
I mean, in terms of the conventional, are there still big finds out there?
Of course there are, yeah. Yeah, like we're different. We're chalk and cheese.
Yeah.
Jonathan's down in the south and I'm up in the Rough North, but there's lots of oil. I think the BGS have said there's 8 billion barrels of oil to be found in the Humber Basin, and so far it's about 750 million barrels have been found. So it's still, where's the other 7 million gone? So it's still there. So, rich pickings. Some people don't even know there's onshore going on. They think it's all from the North Sea. There's some big finds still around.
I mean, there could be there's another witch farm, as an example. There's other projects of that sort of scale out there then, potentially.
Yeah, West Newton. No, I'm only joking. That's a joke. People have, since 35 years it was found? Mm-hmm. And people have tried to find it and replicate it, they haven't been able to. It's an odd one.
I think the scale at which not the scale, but the interval which you're seeing the discoveries, obviously, in the last 10 years is, folks start to think is something being found. But the fact of the matter is, if I want to drill on spot X, after I've done 6 months actually deciding I want to drill there, I'm spending another 2 years before I actually get to drill there as a minimum. In the case of the Holmwood license, I mean, that was 2009, I think.
Yep.
And it's, 2019, so 10 years, not a well drilled on a block that's got multiple prospects. Just to give you some idea. So it's not the inability to find them, it's the inability to be allowed to drill them that's the issue.
What do you think is going to change that? Is there any events that could change?
I don't think so. I can't think of any events.
No, I mean, even with our own gas supply, for instance, I mean, a lot of that obviously comes from outside of the UK at the moment.
Yeah, I know I keep sort of promoting West Newton, but that could be significant enough. That could make a difference, especially to the company. But say onshore, very few of us. If you were to go back 25 years or 20 years even, you had BP, Shell, Total, all the major companies were on. And what you're looking at now, people like Jonathan and ourselves of our companies, where you say, well, BP drilled this in 1987. We're basically living off of the pickings that they found and just basically lost interest. North Sea took over, other countries more developed. So we're basically looking for something a lot smaller. However, small company, big rewards. If you have a hit, and the share prices do react. You've had a good share price, we've had a good share price. It all depends on the cost of oil, whether or not you find oil. Thankfully, we've got a good discovery in the bag with Wrestle, so we're relaxed. We will get planning for that one day, soon.
Without a major cataclysmic event or some crisis, I can't see things changing right now. I mean, if people can't get hold of oil and gas, I'm sure legislation would change tomorrow, but until there's something which really kicks that over, we are basically left just fighting the good fight. Although that's not the way Drill or Drop might see it. But yeah.
I mean, is there still the same level of interest amongst private investors in general in the onshore market in the UK? I mean, there's been quite a few drilling disappointments over the last year or so.
Even, you have to take that on the chin. There's been a lot all over.
Yeah.
And investors still keep coming back. I think as long as the management are okay, liaise with investors, be transparent, there's always money available to do what you need to do. And it's a terrible shame because when you keep having placings, no company wants to go out and keep raising money, but it's either that or you don't live. That's our petrol. Until you get cash flow, and it's so awful when you're so close to it, but you can't do it because of a committee of 10 says you can't pull it out of the ground. But one day it kicks in and then everyone makes a lot of money.
I mean, how quickly could you actually reach production if you got the go-ahead for a production licence on those fields?
Okay, if we had the appeal in August, November, December, we could start producing.
Right.
Well, we'll be hopefully in production in the next couple of months at Brockham. So we got our permission for that. When was that, George? Beginning of... it was end of last year. But obviously did some work there. We had a few setbacks, and at least we've got a decent way forward on that prospect. But at the same time, on another prospect, we're having to apply for planning again, which is another 3-month delay. So, it's you win one, you lose one. One step forward, 2 back, and all that. But we'll see.
I'm guessing obviously the drilling costs are very cheap relatively for what you're doing, are they, to bring multiple wells online?
To offshore, of course, yeah.
But once you get that process underway, would that then fund additional wells to develop? It'd actually fund field development.
You could fund field development, yeah. But the costs are up. It's not probably well onshore, about £3 million if you're lucky.
So it's still quite, yeah.
Still a lot of money when you consider the average placing is 2 million.
Yep.
Yeah.
But your ongoing production cost is low in the UK. I mean, your actual cost to produce a barrel of oil is not expensive.
$8, $12.
Yeah. Once your initial capex is paid off, you're in the money pretty quickly. So.
I mean, you build up tax credits as well at the same time, do you? So those fields become
good
attractive.
Great tax regime onshore UK.
Yep.
Yeah, the tax authorities are good. You know, it's a shame that they don't apply the same thing around the globe with us.
Yeah.
Like planning.
Yep. So that's obviously, yes. So, I mean, in terms of the company overall becoming profitable, that would be fairly soon after production, would it? Or
it would with us.
Or sort of more major production, yeah.
It would with us. We'd be in profit within a year. It's terrible. We've been 2 years in limbo where we've got the discovery, it's proven, we've got a field development plan, and every time we go in front of the council, they tell you where to go. Nightmare. And it is. You just keep on going back with a better plan, and eventually, because you're flawless. And I think that Egton, the operator, are this time.
There's no stricter environment probably in the world for environmental restriction, well, not restriction, but safety, than the UK, onshore and offshore. I mean, it's a zero emission environment completely now. So even flarings, in the case of Brockham, we don't flare. The idea is if we have any gas that's excess to our needs, we basically use it to power a generator that powers the site, and if we have more than that goes to the grid. So, there's actually no waste whatsoever coming out those sites. Everything that comes off the well goes obviously into the cellars, but the whole site's self-contained. Even the rainwater itself is taken off, so nothing is spilt. So, as the regulatory environment goes, you can't understand why the councils are getting nervous when you've got the EA inspecting literally on a monthly basis. You've got the OJ on top of you. All these people that actually have their speciality are monitoring you, but then you have a third party that's usually unelected as well, who's the one that's against it.
I mean, if you were allowed to just get on and develop things as you wanted to without all the legislation, I mean, what's the potential, say, in the next 5 years in terms of production?
You'll probably get killed. Seriously, you could do a lot, but you can't. No, because your company doesn't know everything. I've got to say, the health and safety, Environment Agency, they work very close. Would you not agree, Jonathan?
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's not just an oil company saying, we're going to do this. It's we would like to do this, and they advise and help. They're very good.
But in terms of daily production, I mean, what sort of levels could you get to in, say, 5 year? Looking at a 5 year time scale?
How much money you could raise? I've got 10 wells I could drill now if I had money. But you can't. You've got to do 1, 2 at a time.
Yeah, I mean, if you were looking on a model basis, though, with them sort of obviously self-funding to a certain degree as you went along, the existing wells from production from those.
It's too many factors.
No, it's too many. No, I wasn't sure if you
need a perfect storm and say, well, you need this, you need that. Like we'll be doing 500 barrels a day restricted from Wrestle, of which 185 would be us. At today's oil price, $4 million. Take off 8 to 12 barrels production cost, $8 production. You can work it out. We're left with about 2.5 million. Our running cost is 750. They remain static. We're not a lifestyle company, so we don't intend on changing that burden spend rate. So you can work it out. We've got earnings.
Well, I won't comment on production figures and whatnot because I said it's too complex. But the one thing I will say, if we kept the environmental regulations as they are, and we kept all the OGA regulations as they are, with the existing engineering team, which we've got in-house, we could do 6 to 7 wells a year. If we had a location where we were allowed to drill, without having to go elsewhere or hire anybody else, we could do one every 2 to 3 months, quite happily.
Easily, yeah.
So in that respect, it's, but we still have to maintain the same levels of people, regardless of whether you're doing 1 or 6 a year, simply because of the legislation that's upon us. But the actual engineering, we're not reinventing the wheel. It's all standard stuff. It's not difficult. It's not rocket science drilling for oil. Producing it seems to be, but drilling is easy. But
I mean, there's still developments ongoing that apply to your businesses that are going to reduce those sort of production costs looking forward. I mean, obviously things have changed a lot. You were talking about earlier about the fields that had been almost abandoned in the past because the technology wasn't there to produce from them, or it wasn't viable. So, I mean, is that still progressing at quite a rate?
There's still a few oil fields around, but to be honest, the majors pretty well got the most out of them. But, you know, when you re-enter an old well, better off finding a new prospect with a new structure, bigger pickings.
Yep.
Because you end up in America with stripper wells, 4 or 5 barrels a day. You need 1,000 of those to make money. And America's a bit different over here. A lot of it's been shut in. And you never get it out. They call it attic oil. And it's difficult. You spend a lot of money, and as Jonathan says, the regulations, councils, by the time you get there, it's hardly worth doing.
I mean,
I'd say I agree with you there. If you can do a new prospect, do a new prospect. Going into old wells can be old problems. A lot of these wells are old as the hills. If you don't want to set yourself up for an environmental problem in a few years' time, it's best while the well's in good shape to abandon it. So before a well starts decaying, or you get any sort of corrosion, etc., if you can abandon that from top to bottom, fill the thing, make sure it's all done properly, and then look at a new prospect. I'm not saying don't use the old sites, because the old sites are perfect, but in the case of some of the older wells, a workover to give you a couple of barrels a day, it's not worth the hassle.
I mean, you mentioned briefly about flaring. I mean, in terms of the excess gas potential, I mean, is there any potential with that for being used elsewhere?
Well, no, straight to the grid.
Yeah, like gas to wire, or
You can, if you've got the will, you could put it in canisters and sell it to Tesco to run their plants, and there's loads of things you can do with the gas. It's shocking to see it wasted, but.
Do you think that will change, though? I mean, obviously we're moving towards.
I think it might have to change. Yeah, almost certainly, and that'd be great because you make money from it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like a byproduct that's going to nothing at the minute, isn't it? Yeah.
But while you're testing, you've got to chuck something out in the air, I'm afraid.
No, gas to wire is the option if possible. Just getting the connections in, which is time consuming, but to get a small connection in will take you up to a year. To get a connection into a large substation, which could be kilometers away, could take you 3 to 5 years. So, if you want to realize especially the way that the government's working now, where they won't let you actually go into production or even test it in some places. So you don't know how much you've got. But you're having to wait this extended period before you're actually allowed to test thoroughly. So that's being a bit of a tricky bit. So, I mean, there's ways of, I wouldn't say, you're not getting around it, but there's ways you can utilize it temporarily to, we use a boiler system, for our oil heating and things like that, and try to run all the power for the sites, etc. But if you land up with a big gas discovery now, you actually have a problem in how long it's going to take you to connect to the grid. And connecting to a gas main line, if you can put in your due equipment on site, is also 1 to 3 years.
Right.
So once again, a nice crude oil discovery is actually easier to deal with initially, at least, than a big gas discovery. Although gas should be, in my opinion, taken a lot more seriously onshore UK if possible. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, where do you see oil prices going over the next sort of few years? I mean, obviously we had a big dip a couple of years back, or 3 or 4 years back now, where it sort of seems to have settled. I mean, do you see that as a sort of longer term, more stabilised rate, or are we still going to see big fluctuations?
If you read every analyst report, some will say 30, some will say 120.
So
who knows? What's the ball? This is a good price. Anything over 60 is fabulous for us.
Yeah. Anything over 20, we make good money. So.
Oh yeah.
It's all right. But every 8 years it dies. I mean, died in 86, died in 93, died in 2002, died in 2010, and lasts about a year to 18 months, and we all think it's never going to go back up, and doom and gloom, and then
probably see it go up. I mean, Saudi have got the Aramco IPO coming up, so that's probably going to make a difference there. I mean, in terms of electric vehicles, coming on to that, I mean, how big an impact could that have on the oil industry in this country? I mean, they're talking, I think, 2030 to get all sort of petrol vehicles off the roads, or new petrol vehicles off the roads.
I think massive impact. I think we've probably got 15 years.
Yep.
That'd be my opinion. But you still need oil for probably everything you're wearing has got some oil-made product, shoes, shirts, trousers, you name it, underpants. You all need oil. Tablets, if you ever have a headache, that's oil-based. Mm-hmm. There's millions of products.
Yep.
The chairs we're sitting in. So even though the electric cars come on, it doesn't mean to say that's the end of the oil market. Far from it.
Well, no, even since electric cars have come in, petrol production has pretty much been stable, even though demand has increased. But oil demand has increased massively, but petrol demand is pretty much stable. So where we're seeing the increase is plastics and everything else. It's not really on petrol cars. So.
Right. I mean, in terms of the use of sort of hydrocarbons for power generation, I mean, is that something that will make a difference? Because obviously all these electric vehicles are going to have to be charged from somewhere.
Yeah. Well, when you look at all these vanes going up, what do they call the power turbines?
Yes, yeah.
Well, they're made out of hydrocarbon product.
Mm.
So,
but even traditional power stations, I mean, we're still fairly reliant on.
It's got to, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to be out of business for a few years, don't worry.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of actually raising funding at the moment, I mean, you touched on it not being that easy. I mean, is that something that's going to improve?
Oh, of course it does. It always improves. We funded about 3 weeks ago, and it was hard enough. We raised the money we wanted 1.5 million. We got 1.75, so we were oversubscribed. But I wouldn't have wanted to put a target of 2 or 3 million.
No.
And also, this is the time I'll bring Brexit up if I dare. A lot of companies are worried about Brexit, so they think, well, we want to fill our coffers up now before all the bloody dung hits it. But they're out raising money, so if you're 5th or 6th or 7th in the line, it's like being at Heathrow with all the aircraft taken off. By the time you're the 7th taken off, they say, oh, sorry, we had I3 last week or somebody else, and so the money's not really available. But we raised it fine. You know, you always, I think it was an 8% discount, which is great. Young lady waving over there at you. Oh.
I mean, are private investors too focused on the short term when they make investments in
Some
companies?
are, some aren't. So, you know, we've got some great private investors, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
You can always gauge that by, you hate to say it, but bloody bulletin boards.
Yep.
You know, it's when they start calling you 4-letter names on it, you want to start worrying. I've had that loads of times.
Mm. I stopped reading them.
Sorry?
Stop reading them.
Right, exactly, yeah. But private investors, they're the lifeblood of our companies, really. They're the guys that put the money in and support your shares, because institutions don't, if you're under 50 million market cap, they wouldn't even look at you.
No.
I mean, is there potential at all certainly these companies to raise money through, I don't know, open offers, that sort of thing, that benefit potentially your existing holders rather
That's
than
a great question,
the people who they're in just to try and flip shares around?
Look, you'll go to an institution, we'll call them an institution, and they say, right, we'll take $1 million. So they take $1 million, you've no idea where that stock is going to end up. And frankly, it's not our business. We don't. If we start asking questions like that, they wouldn't want to invest with you, you know. No. They want to put $1 million in, you give them $1 million quid of a stock, and that's it. And it's the same with Jonathan will find out. We sell a product, and we sold it, and that keeps us going. That's our fuel, our petrol.
Yep. So, is that a similar situation for you, Jonathan? Or?
Yeah, I mean, the retail guys, as you say, are the lifeblood of it, but if people want to come in short-term, long-term, it's their money, it's their decision, and that's that. There are institutions which will, as David say, flip you out in about 3 or 4 days if they can, and their guys will hold you for a couple of years. But end of the day, you're in that situation, you're asking for money, you're offering X discount, whatever it is, and you take the money you offered, unless you're in a very good situation.
Well, you've always been able to raise money, and we have as well.
Oh, yeah.
I'd hate to be in a desperation stage where you literally where they say, oh, we'll take your shares, but we're going to offer you 50% discount.
Yeah.
That would be criminal. And some companies...
There's been a few recently like that, yeah. I mean, do these companies actually get targeted by shorters and that sort of thing? I mean, no, you don't, there's no shorters, no.
It'd be, a lot of people say, oh, this share's been shorted. Like, who'd short? Like, without being over-pronounced, if West Newton comes in, you could be anything. 180 billion cubic feet of gas, work that out. So who would short that? When the share may be, I'm not saying that's what, but we've got a share of 0.15 one day, and it could be 3 or 4p the next, pence. Who'd short that? They're going to get killed.
It's one of those sort of myths you always see, isn't it?
I don't think exploration stocks get shorted very much, if at all.
No, that's good. No.
Fallacy, I think.
Yes, yeah.
I haven't a clue, to be honest.
That's fine. I think we're getting towards any questions at all from anyone?
Sure. Nothing. Number one.
So you've gone quite in depth in the onshore business. How do you see the offshore UK?
Thriving. It's great.
Away from majors towards the smaller companies.
A lot of independents are buying. The majors seem to be looking towards Guyana, French Guyana, Africa, Burma. Is it still called Burma? Probably not. It shows
Myanmar now, isn't it?
Yeah, give my age away. But they're all, I'm not saying that the North Sea is empty, far from it. But you get a lot of these very wealthy independents buying the assets off of Shell and all these other companies now. So no, it's thriving, but the sort of money you need, if somebody gave us £10 million, we'd be like a kid at a candy shop. So we'd want to be drilling, we'd spend it quick. But these guys are raising 150 million. That's the difference between onshore and offshore, and it'll always be the same, always has been. There's probably less risk onshore.
A transaction recently, North Sea, buying 3 old platforms, and the bond that was required on the decommissioning liabilities for the platforms was almost 2 billion. So when you start putting it like that, it's a big whack. But no, there's lots of really nice low-hanging fruit in the North Sea, and if they start restructuring the P&A liability, or at least how you look at it, there's some very nice assets about. I mean, reserves. I mean, like what Apache did with the Forties. When was it, about 15 years ago now? They took the Forties from doing 13,000 barrels a day to doing 40,000 barrels a day in a year. So there's some really nice stuff. It's just you need some fairly deep pockets to play.
I mean, Sarika Energy is obviously a good example of one that's done very well from sort of on the offshore stuff, isn't it, over the years, from very low sort of level, and actually progressed. I mean, it bought assets cheap. I think it just bought at the right time, and everything's sort of gone right for it.
Time is everything in the game, really, well, any business.
Anybody else?
George, no?
Right, well, thank you, David and Jonathan.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming.
Great, thanks very much.
Thank you.